On today's edition of Steelers Talk, we have the latest Steelers wide receiver trade rumors where multiple reports are linking big-name receivers to the Steelers in a trade before the NFL trade deadline. We got 3 receivers to talk about today at the top of today's show. Then we'll get into a report that claims that Mason McCormick, rookie guard out of South Dakota State, may get the start over Spencer Anderson at left guard this week against the Colts. And then we'll finish up today's show breaking down which former first-round pick the Steelers signed to their practice squad earlier today. Welcome into the show. I am your host, Jack Sperry. And before we get into the content today, make sure you guys click that subscribe button right now for daily Steelers content, in-depth, 100% free, breaking news coverage. So if they make a big wide receiver trade, we're going to be going live for you guys right here on the channel. And speaking of live shows, we go live twice a week, every single week during the week, okay? So Mondays and Thursdays we go live, and then we also go live for our live watch parties for every single Steelers game as well. It's all 100% free. We got over 60,000 subscribers, which makes us the largest individually run Steelers channel here on YouTube. So thank you guys so much for all of your support. Now let's get into our first story today, and let's talk about the latest Steelers trade rumors here surrounding the wide receiver position. Now, CTESPN says and predicts that the Pittsburgh Steelers will trade for Devonte Adams. Now, before you go ahead and tell me, Jack, you're relying on unreliable sources. I know CTESPN is not a reliable source, but CTESPN is not the only one that has been throwing out the idea of the Pittsburgh Steelers potentially grabbing Devonte Adams in a trade before the NFL trade deadline this year. And currently, the Pittsburgh Steelers rank 5th on the current next team odds. For Devonte Adams, the New York Jets currently have the highest odds on 1-3 odds. Kansas City Chiefs currently sit at number 2, followed by the Ravens, Bills, and then the Steelers slot in there at number 5. So clearly the Steelers could be in the running here. That is, if Devonte Adams is made available via trade before the deadline. So let's talk here about Devonte Adams. He is 31 years old, so he's not a young buck anymore. He's definitely a seasoned veteran, but man, he is one of the best all-around wide receivers in the National Football League. Still, all right, he is 6'1", 215 pounds, so he's got excellent size. He's still one of, if not the best route runner in the National Football League today. He's got a great catch radius. He can make tough catches in 50-50 ball situations. This guy has been a catch, yardage, and touchdown machine throughout his career, and he still has 3 years left on his contract. Take a look at these numbers, man. On a lot of these years, you got guys like Derek Carr, Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, Jimmy Garoppolo throwing him the football, and he was still putting up double-digit touchdowns in just about every single season, over 1,000 yards in each of those seasons as well. He's averaging over a first down per catch in all 4 of his previous 4 seasons. Now he's got Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, and obviously it's not a good situation yet again there in Las Vegas, so he might want out. We'll see, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in today's show. But I honestly do not care that he is 31. Every time that I post something about Devonte Adams on X, people tell me, Jack, he's too old. We don't want him. Well, it's like the Pittsburgh Steelers are trying to win right now, all right? They're trying to win, so you add good players. I don't care if they're 31. I think that Devonte still has at least a half decade of good football left in him with the way that he's playing right now. If you watch him on film, he's still one of the best, most crisp route runners in the National Football League, and at his size, that is a massive value, and he could be a huge addition for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if you're going for the Super Bowl championship this year, and the Pittsburgh Steelers certainly seem like that's their intention this year, if you have an opportunity to get Devonte Adams on your football team, you freaking pull the trigger. Now, you got to get him at the right price. I wouldn't overpay for Devonte Adams. What I would be willing to offer for Devonte, because there's going to be a bidding war. If he's made available, the Jets are going to want him. The Saints might get in on it. There's a lot of teams that would want Devonte Adams' services, okay? So the Steelers will have to outbid everybody. What I'd be willing to put my offer in for is 2 consecutive second-round picks. I think it's more than fair for a guy that is aging, but somebody that still has 3 years left on his contract, including this season, and is still an all-pro caliber talent, at least in my opinion. So let me know down there in the comments section, would you accept this trade if you were Steelers GM Omar Khan? Devonte Adams for 2 second-round picks. Type A if you would accept it, or type D if you would decline it. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So when YouTube throws you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds, let me know what you would do down there in the comments section. Now, personally, guys, I think the only way that Davante Adams actually ends up getting traded by the deadline is if he straight up demands a trade out of Las Vegas, because I don't think the Raiders want to do this trade, right? They still have him under contract for 3 years. So the only way that they'd be incentivized to do that is if he's pretty much demanding his way out of there. So and I don't think it's going to happen, all right? Because if you listen to Davante Adams speak, in his press conferences, when this topic comes up, he makes it pretty clear that he's probably not going to get traded this year, that he's committed to the Las Vegas Raiders organization and to their new head coach, Antonio Pierce. You never know. Things could change, and he could change his mind by the trade deadline. And if that's the case, if you're GM Omar Khan, you definitely make the call to try to land this cat because he is special and he can help you win a championship. But at the end of the day, if I have to put a likelihood as to the Steelers landing Davante Adams, I'd probably put it at less than 20%. So coming up here on Steelers Talk, 2 more wide receivers have been connected to the Pittsburgh Steelers by ESPN's Dan Graziano. We're going to be breaking down their profiles here and the likelihood they become Pittsburgh Steelers by the trade deadline here in just a second. But before we get into that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Mando Whole Body Deodorant. And folks, whenever I go on a trip, I never know what to pack in terms of personal hygiene products. Do I bring a tiny shampoo, face wash, and body wash? Do I pour my shampoo into a tiny travel-sized bottle? Where do you even get those? We all know the struggle, and our friends at Mando Whole Body Deodorant have come up with the perfect solution. Simplify your travel today with Mando's 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar. It's a 5-ounce bar that does the work of shampoo, face wash, body wash, and deodorant. You can also use it to create a rich shaving lather so for all of your on-the-go shaving needs. So technically, it's a 5-in-1. What's even better is that it's clinically proven to control odor for 24 hours. Mando's 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar is formulated with a gentle alpha hydroxy acid that stops odor at the source. Regular soap can't do that because the pH level is too high. And the last thing you need in your life is too much pH. This new product is going to simplify your hygiene routine, and it's the only thing you really need to pack whenever you travel. You can also get it in 3 cologne quality scents, including Mount Fuji, Pro Sport, and my personal favorite, Bourbon Leather. Take advantage of Mando's special offer just for Steelers Talk listeners, which gives new customers $5 off their best-selling starter pack with code CHAT at shopmando.com. And folks, I personally love their 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar when I travel, but I also love using the body wash every single day at home. I got a big bottle of their Bourbon Leather body wash at home that I use every single day in the shower. It keeps me smelling fresh all day long. And personally, folks, I don't really have a problem with my personal hygiene, but ever since Mando came on with us here at Chat Sports, it's helped out the other people with their stink in the office, which of course helps me out as well. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers because it comes with a solid stick of deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like you could get the mini body wash that I just showed you, and also they have deodorant wipes that are really, really highly regarded as well. Plus, you get free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market today. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code that equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code CHAT at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. A big thanks to Mando Whole Body Deodorant for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. So let's get into this report from Dan Graziano from ESPN, where he says the Pittsburgh Steelers are quote-unquote monitoring the wide receiver market for a big-name wide receiver. And the 2 wide receivers that he mentioned were DeAndre Hopkins from the Tennessee Titans and then Christian Kirk, slot receiver from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the Tennessee Titans, Jacksonville Jaguars, those are 2 teams that are struggling to begin the season, could be selling at the deadline. So let's talk about these 2 wide receiver targets and whether or not I think they're a good idea for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's start with D-Hop. We've talked about him a lot on the show in the past. He's a little bit older, just like Devonte Adams is, 32 years old. He's got good size at 6'1", 212 pounds. Very similar play style to George Pickens. I'd say Pickens is better after the catch than Hopkins is, but Hopkins is a good route runner that can get open. But, if he's in a tight situation and, it's a 50-50 ball, he's going to come down with the football. And, yes, he still is a very good football player. He is not washed. If you've watched him over the last several years, you would see that on his film. And you see in the box score here as well that this guy is still a very, very good player. Even last year when he was playing with some pretty bad quarterback play there in Tennessee, still over 1,000 yards, still got 7 touchdowns, and had the highest average yards per catch than he had over this last 4-year stretch. So he's still somebody that can get the job done. I think he'd be an excellent complement to George Pickens. And I also think that, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they like George Pickens. DeAndre Hopkins, very similar type of receiver. If you have to guard 2 George Pickens type receivers at the same time, that's going to be really, really difficult on opposing defenses going up against Justin Fields in the Steelers offense. Also, because he is getting older, he shouldn't be too expensive. Now, there might be a little bit of a market for him, so maybe it would cost the Steelers a little bit more than what I would initially offer for him. But right now, if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm offering a 4th-round pick in 2026 and then a 6th-round pick next year. He is somebody that is aging. He is somebody that they're going to be looking to unload at the trade deadline. Now, maybe the Steelers might have to pay a little bit more than this, but this is at least what I would begin the negotiations with if I were Steelers GM Omar Khan. And as we know, Omar has a knack for fleecing these teams out of good players, so it wouldn't shock me at all if a deal actually looks something like this if the Steelers are able to get D-Hop in the black and gold. Plus, I think that he's got the mentality that Mike Tomlin absolutely loves. He's all business about football. All right, now make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you want the Pittsburgh Steelers to trade for a wide receiver before the trade deadline. If you don't, also like the video. If you like Calvin Austin III, Roman Wilson, and Scotty Miller, you don't think the Steelers need a receiver, go ahead and click that thumbs up icon regardless. I really do appreciate your guys' support. So now let's talk about Christian Kirk, the other receiver that Dan Graziano mentioned in his article and his report about the Steelers monitoring big-name receivers. And when it comes to Christian Kirk, he is more of a slot-type receiver. He's 5'11", 200 pounds, so he's a little bit bigger for a slot guy. But he's 27 years old, so he's still relatively young. He's a very reliable guy, good route runner, good hands. I will say his blocking grades throughout his career have not been fantastic, but he does have 2 years left on his deal, so maybe Jacksonville doesn't really feel like they need to unload him, but maybe the Steelers really want a bigger slot receiver that's reliable and add them to this offense. I mean, I don't really know if the Steelers would be really interested in Christian Kirk, but you look at his numbers here over the last several seasons. In 2022 and 2021, he flirted close to 1,000 yards. Last year, he had a little bit of a dip, only 3 touchdowns. He was injured for a little bit with 12 games played instead of the full 17-game schedule. But, he's very reliable. He's somebody that, would be a good slot receiver if the Pittsburgh Steelers ended up picking him up. However, I don't think Pittsburgh really wants a slot specialist. I think they want somebody that's better on the outside because Roman Wilson is more of a slot specialist. Calvin Austin III does his best work in the slot as well. So personally, not sure if the Steelers are going to be too interested in a guy like Kirk, who's had most of his success in his NFL career in the slot, and they'd probably rather go out and get a guy like DeAndre Hopkins or Devonte Adams, who is more of an outside presence. And I'd personally rather target somebody else. Like I mentioned, D-Hop, Devonte Adams, Cortland Sutton, if he's made available. A bigger presence on the outside, I think fits better with Justin Fields. I think it fits better with Arthur Smith's offense. I think it fits better with what the Steelers need from a personnel standpoint at this point. So pick a receiver for me down there in the comments section. Between these 3 options, which one would you like to have? Devonte Adams type DA, DeAndre Hopkins type DH, Christian Kirk type CK, or if there's another receiver like a Cortland Sutton or somebody else, or John Mechie that you'd like to go out and get, type O down there in the comments section. Now, before I go, I do have some final items to discuss with you guys right here on Steelers Talk before I wrap it up for the day. The first one is a report from Ray Filipaldo, who says that Mason McCormick might start at left guard over Spencer Anderson in Week 4. He talked about an increased workload for McCormick, and he said he wouldn't be surprised if he just outright starts this week. The fact that McCormick is impressing coaches this much and that he's in line to potentially even start over Spencer Anderson at this point, I think definitely points to this coaching staff's confidence in this young man to be a future starter on this offensive line. Even if he doesn't start this week or even this season, I do think he's going to be a starter on this offensive line next season. So, and I do think that if Mason's ready, I'd put him in, right? If Isaac Seumalo isn't all the way back this week, if Spencer Anderson isn't practicing as well as Mason McCormick, and you think Mason is ready to go, I'd put him in there and I'd see what he could do. Spencer's been okay at left guard to start this season. He's played backup quality football, in my opinion. Do you think you can get a higher level of play from Mason McCormick? I think that you put him in there and you put him in this week. And then I mentioned earlier that the Pittsburgh Steelers signed a former first-round pick to their practice squad. It is C.J. Henderson, former 9th overall pick, former top 10 pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars out of Florida. He eventually went to Carolina, was a starter in both spots before he was made available in free agency. Nobody picked him up. Now the Steelers do, and he kind of could fit into that Dante Jackson role. He's a little bit smaller, but he's extremely athletic and fast. So he's definitely got a high pedigree. He hasn't really lived up to his potential in the league yet, but he's a good depth piece with Corey Trice Jr. heading to IR. Then also the Steelers worked out wide receiver Josh Ursua, somebody that works out with Russell Wilson in the offseason. So that's something to keep in mind here, that if the Steelers sign John Ursua, that is a sign potentially that either Russell Wilson is in their ear saying, hey, this guy's a pretty good, darn good player, or it's the Steelers saying, yeah, we probably want Russell Wilson to be quarterback of this team at some point, and we want receivers on this team that he is comfortable with. So the fact that they are looking at Ursua definitely supports the argument that the Steelers still plan on going to Russell Wilson once he's back fully healthy from that calf injury. Now, that'll be it for today's show, guys. Really do appreciate your support. Make sure you type Real One in all caps down there in the comments section if you made it to the end of today's show. What making it to the end of every show means for us is that the algorithm, it tells the algorithm here on YouTube that you like today's program and that they should recommend it to other people that love the Steelers here on YouTube. So if you make it to the end of the show, it really does help us out, man. So make sure you identify yourself down there in the comments section so we know who all the real ones are. That'll be it for today's show, guys. I appreciate all of your support. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button because we got more Steelers content coming your way tomorrow. It is Steelers Talk Live. It's going to be my birthday celebration. My birthday's on Friday, but we're going to be celebrating it tomorrow on Steelers Talk Live. It's going to start at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be playing some people in Madden. There's going to be a bunch of fun stuff happening, lots of birthday shenanigans. So if you want to join us for my birthday celebration right here on Steelers Talk tomorrow, it's 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So don't miss it, guys. Click that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.